Hi, welcome back to Storytime with Dave Booker. Appreciate you coming back. Today we're going to continue on with the chapter Soleman Treads Lightly from Soleman, the Healed Avenger. So, in the last reading, Stubs had said that he had just said that he had a hostage. He didn't really have one. So, Soleman and Flats left and decided, well, we better make sure. So they're back checking on whether or not he really did. So let's continue on. Soleman signaled for Flats to stand guard. Sliding down a pipe, he dropped to the level Stubbs had used to oversee the fight. The locked door was easily dealt with. Soleman used a small flashlight that was surprisingly bright for its size. Shining the light through an old-style keyhole, he used a pen-sized telescope to peer into the room. Seated in the back was a shrouded figure. They appeared to be frightened if the shaking of the thin material of the shroud was any indication. Under the chair was a box. What the box contained was unknown, but probably an explosive of some sort. From his back pocket, he pulled out a rectangular mirror and an extension probe. Attaching a thread to the top of the mirror, he pushed it through with the probe. Pulling on the thread, the mirror rose and reflected the opposite side of the door. A wire was attached to the door handle that went upwards across the ceiling and down to the chair. Since the line was taut, it was a sure bet that if the door was open, the line would pull on the box and either release a catch or drop the box on the floor, shattering some diabolical instrument inside. Bring the extender back out, he stepped on the thin metal and using the pliers, sharpened the end. After bending the end to the length that would extend from the handle to the line, he pushed it through the keyhole and cut the line. Unsure if the trap was immediate and if it still was active, he thrust open the door and rushed in. Tripping over a black fishing line, he fell, rolled, and stood only to see a steel barrier slide swiftly across the open doorway. His first concern was for the hostage, and he snatched the material away. The dummy seated in the chair had a grinning face. A voice came over the speaker above the door. I was unsure if you would take my word. Had you done so, you would have returned home unharmed. I put this trap up just in case you showed back up. I checked around. Your partner has returned to your vehicle to wait your return. You will have an exceptionally long wait. You also will not be able to find you since the metal that slid across the door fits flush with the rest of the wall, rendering the opening invisible. I regret that we will have no further contact. You are a worthy adversary, and I would have enjoyed our games of chess. Goodbye. The room is now hermetically sealed, and you have at most a day or two remaining. The microphone clicked off. Soleman doubted that Flats had left, but at the moment didn't see what he could do. Perry had left everything that could have possibly an aid in the car. Pushing the dummy off the chair, he sat down to wait. Out of curiosity, he pulled the box open. Inside was a bottle of champagne, a glass, and a container of crackers and cheese. Small, sliced Westphalian ham was in another container. It seemed Stubbs either had excellent taste or wanted to honor Soleman. Perry spread out the cloth, sat comfortably on the floor with a wall at his back, lit his flashlight, and set it up as a candle. Relaxed and as comfortable as he could make things, he set about refreshing himself. Carefully undid the cork so as not to lose any of the champagne. He toasted his host and feasted. Flats emerged from his hiding place in the corner of the roof and descended once he had seen Stubbs depart. In the interim of Soleman investigating, Flats had gone back to the car and gathered a few items and put his coat and hat over them to give the impression he had gone to the car to wait on Soleman's return. In a bag slung over his shoulder, he had a selection of items that might help him release Soleman. Laying out a few items, he contemplated the puzzle of how to release his friend. Time was of the essence, but Perry had always stressed remaining calm so that you could think. The wall was sealed so well, finding a seam was going to be difficult, if not impossible. He took a thin piece of steel and brushed it over the wall, listening carefully for any click indicating a breach in the material. He found a couple and placed several sheets in each. Oh, excuse me. Bending them together, he formed a trough and laid glass sheets in the base and sides. Taking some hydrogen peroxide, he pulled a few sprays and foot ointments, mixing them together and drizzling them into the seams. It took time, but the area where the sheet edge began to bubble and spit. The mixture was eating away at the steel, showing that the barrier was steel laid over wood. It looked more formidable than it was. Stubbs must have assumed that Flats would have seen the barrier and either left to get some explosives or given up. Explosives might have killed Perry, and as to giving up, well, it never would have entered Oedipus's head. More of the corrosive, and the space was wide enough that air was flowing. He shouted at Perry that rescue was at hand. A calm voice called to him to take his time. Oedipus felt Perry must have been delirious from lack of oxygen, or just trying to keep him calm. Finding a long pole, he braced one end against a beam and wedged it at an angle against the wall. He inserted a jack hook under the base where the corrosive had eaten enough away for a hold. As he pumped the jack with his foot, he pulled downwards on the pole, effectively pushing the door back and upwards. When the door was a foot high, an arm held out a champagne glass filled to the brim. Next came a few crackers with ham and cheese. Refreshed, Oedipus went to work with zest. The door opened enough for Perry to clamber out. The two men embraced warmly, then gathered their equipment and made a hurried escape. In the car, it took a moment for Soleman to quiet his nerves. For all his outward calm, he was filled with turmoil on the inside. A few days later, Stubbs returned to the warehouse. Seeing the evidence of rescue, he looked with admiration at the ingenuity of the two men. Looking under the panel, he saw a neatly folded cloth and the remains of the repast repacked and boxed. Stubbs grinned at an opponent worth after his own heart. Calm in crisis, resourceful, and with a partner who would stop at nothing to rescue him. He bowed in honor of the spirit of the two men. Sometime in the future, they would meet again. All right, so the next chapter is a matching pair of pumps. So we'll get to that one in a few days. In the meantime, I appreciate you stopping by. I look forward to seeing you on our next reading. Be good and be good to yourself.